postcard arrives with Tuesday's mail. I recognize it immediately. Monte Carlo, 1984. The image shows the Casino de Monte Carlo in its golden age glory, the Belle Époque architecture gleaming in Mediterranean sunlight. I turn it over with careful fingers. The message is brief, written in faded blue ink. The game is not over. M.R. I set down my morning coffee and study the postcard more closely. The edges are worn, the colors slightly faded. It has traveled through time to reach me here in my villa overlooking the sea. 40 years. Has it really been so long? 40 years ago, I was 30 years old and thought I understood crime. The French Riviera seemed like paradise then, a playground for the wealthy where the worst problems were stolen jewelry and insurance fraud. I was wrong about both the place and the nature of crime. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. I walked to my study and placed the postcard on my desk next to the others. My collection spans decades now, each one a memory, each one a case. This particular postcard holds special significance. It was my first real test as a detective on the Riviera. The case that taught me to look beyond the obvious, to see the patterns that others miss. The morning is crisp as I walk up the hill toward the Casino de Monte Carlo. October in Monaco carries a hint of autumn, but the Mediterranean sun still warms the stone facades of the grand buildings. I am young then, eager, perhaps too eager. My transfer from the Belgian police to the French Riviera came through just 3 months ago. Everything here seems larger than life. The money, the glamour, the stakes. The casino doorman nods as I approach. He wears the traditional uniform with gold braiding, every button polished to perfection. This is a place where appearances matter, where every detail is carefully maintained. Inspector Dubois? His voice carries the formal courtesy that defines Monaco. Monsieur Beaumont is expecting you. I follow him through the main gaming hall. Even at 10 in the morning, the casino hums with quiet activity. A few early players sit at the baccarat tables, their faces serious, their movements precise. The air smells of expensive cologne and old money. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over green felt tables. Everything speaks of tradition, of standards maintained across generations. We climb a marble staircase to the private floors. Here the casino's public face gives way to something more intimate. The hallways are narrower, the lighting softer. Oil paintings line the walls, portraits of Monaco's royal family, landscapes of the Riviera in earlier times. This is where the casino's most valued clients stay when they visit. Privacy is absolute. Discretion is everything. Monsieur Beaumont's suite is at the end of the hall. The doorman says, "The police are already there." I thank him and walk down the carpeted corridor. My footsteps make no sound. Even the carpet here is of the finest quality, thick enough to muffle any disturbance. At the end of the hall, I see 2 uniformed officers standing outside an open door. They straighten as I approach. Inspector Dubois? The older officer extends his hand. "Sergeant Moreau, we have been waiting for you." I shake his hand and look past him into the suite. What do we know? Monsieur Philippe Beaumont, age 58, owner of the casino, found dead this morning by housekeeping. No signs of forced entry, no obvious cause of death. I step into the suite and stop. The room is magnificent. High ceilings, tall windows overlooking the harbor, furniture that speaks of both comfort and wealth. but something feels wrong. Not wrong in an obvious way, but wrong in the way a postcard might be wrong if someone had altered the image slightly. Philippe Beaumont sits in a leather armchair facing the windows. He wears an elegant smoking jacket, dark blue silk with gold trim. His hands rest on the chair's arms in a natural position. His eyes are closed, his face peaceful. If not for the absolute stillness, he might be sleeping. The housekeeping staff found him at 8 this morning. Sergeant Moreau continues. They knocked, received no answer, used their key. Monsieur Beaumont was exactly as you see him now. I walk slowly around the chair, observing. This is something I learned from an experienced colleague in Brussels. Never rush to conclusions. Let the scene speak first. Look at everything as if you are seeing it for the first time. The suite is immaculate. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken glass. The bed has not been slept in. A crystal decanter sits on a side table with 2 glasses, one empty, one half full of what appears to be cognac. The morning newspaper lies folded on a small table, unread. Has anyone touched anything? I ask. Only to check for signs of life, Sergeant Moreau replies. The doctor confirmed death at 8:30. He estimates time of death between midnight and 2 in the morning. I approach the side table with the cognac. The crystal is of exceptional quality, the kind that rings like a bell when touched. I lean closer without disturbing anything. The half-full glass sits precisely in the center of a small silver tray. Too precisely, perhaps. Who was the last person to see Monsieur Beaumont alive? His assistant, Madame Rousseau. She left him here at approximately 11 last night. They had been reviewing the casino's monthly reports. I make a note in my small leather notebook. I will need to speak with her. She's waiting downstairs in the casino office. I continue my examination of the room. The windows are closed and locked from the inside. The door shows no signs of tampering. If this is murder, it is a very subtle one. But something about the scene troubles me. It is too perfect, too composed, like a postcard image that has been carefully arranged. On the desk near the window, I notice a small stack of correspondence. Business letters mostly, but one envelope catches my attention. It is cream-colored, expensive paper, with Monsieur Beaumont's name written in elegant script. The envelope has been opened, but I cannot see the contents from where I stand. Sergeant Moreau, has anyone examined the mail? Not yet, Inspector. We were waiting for you. I approach the desk carefully. The letter lies partially visible beneath other papers. I can see only a few words. Final payment and as agreed. The handwriting is distinctive, flowing, confident. We will need to examine everything, I say. But first, I want to speak with Madame Rousseau. We leave the suite, and I ask the officers to seal the room. No one enters without my permission. In cases like this, the smallest detail might prove crucial. I have learned that evidence can disappear quickly, if not properly protected. The casino office is located on the ground floor, behind the main gaming area. It is a world apart from the public spaces, functional rather than decorative, though still elegant in its simplicity. Madame Rousseau waits in a small conference room, her hands folded in her lap, her posture perfect despite the circumstances. She's perhaps 45, with silver-touched dark hair, arranged in a classic style. Her clothing is expensive but understated, a navy suit that speaks of quality rather than fashion. Her eyes are red from crying, but she maintains her composure with the dignity I am learning to associate with the Riviera's professional class. Madame Rousseau, I say, taking the seat across from her. I am Inspector Dubois. I am very sorry for your loss. Thank you, Inspector. Her voice is steady, controlled. Philippe he was a good man, a fair employer. I cannot understand what has happened. How long did you work for Monsieur Beaumont? 15 years. I started as his secretary when he first acquired the casino. Over time, I became his assistant, then his business manager. He trusted me with everything. I make notes as she speaks. Her French carries a slight accent, Corsican perhaps, or from one of the southern regions. Her manner suggests education, refinement, the kind of background that would appeal to a man like Beaumont. Tell me about last night. You were with him until 11? Yes. We were reviewing the monthly financial reports. October has been a good month for the casino. Philippe was pleased with the numbers. How did he seem? His mood, his health. She considers the question carefully. He seemed normal, perhaps a little tired, but that was not unusual. Running a casino is demanding work. He often stayed late to review the day's activities. Did he mention any concerns, any problems with the business or personal matters? No, nothing specific. He did mention that he was expecting an important letter, but he did not elaborate. I look up from my notes. An important letter? Yes. He checked the mail several times during the day. When it arrived in the afternoon, he seemed relieved. He read it in his office, then put it in his jacket pocket. Did you see the letter? Only the envelope. Cream-colored paper, very elegant. His name was written by hand. This matches what I observed in the suite. Did he say anything about the contents? Only that it concerned a business matter that had been troubling him. He seemed satisfied with whatever the letter contained. I make more notes. A business matter that had been troubling him. Resolved by a letter that arrived yesterday. This could be significant. Madame Rousseau, in your 15 years with Monsieur Beaumont, did he have any enemies? Anyone who might wish him harm? She shakes her head immediately. Philippe was respected by everyone. He ran an honest business, treated his employees well, paid his debts promptly. I cannot think of anyone who would want to hurt him. What about the casino's clients? Any problems with gambling debts or disputes? Nothing serious. Occasionally someone would lose more than they could afford and become upset. But Philippe always handled such situations with discretion. He believed in maintaining the casino's reputation above all else. I close my notebook and study her face. She appears genuinely distressed by her employer's death. But there is something else in her expression. Not guilt, exactly, but perhaps knowledge she is not sharing. Is there anything else you think I should know? Anything that might help me understand what happened? She hesitates for a moment, then shakes her head. I wish I could help more, Inspector. Philippa was like family to me. I want to find out what happened as much as you do. I give her my card and ask her to contact me if she remembers anything else. As she leaves, I watch her walk across the casino floor. Her movements are graceful, controlled, but I notice she glances back at the staircase leading to the private suites. There is something she is not telling me. I return to Beaumont's suite to continue my examination. The room feels different now, more like a crime scene, and less like a peaceful death. I approach the desk again and carefully examine the letter. Using a handkerchief, I lift the other papers to reveal the complete message. The letter is brief, written on expensive stationery with no letterhead. Monsieur Beaumont, your final payment has been received and accepted. Our business arrangement is now complete. You may consider the matter closed. With regards, M.R. Muir. The same initials from the postcard that arrived this morning, but that is impossible. This letter is 40 years old, and the postcard arrived today. Unless... I study the letter more carefully. The paper is cream-colored, as Madame Rousseau described, but it shows no signs of age. The ink is fresh, the creases sharp. This letter was written recently, not 40 years ago. Someone is playing games with time, with memory, with truth. But why send me a postcard now, 40 years later? What game is not over? I photograph the letter and seal it as evidence. Then I continue my examination of the suite, looking for anything else that might seem out of place. In the bathroom, I find Beaumont's evening medications. Nothing unusual for a man of his age. In the bedroom closet, his clothes hang in perfect order, each suit carefully maintained. But in the sitting room, I notice something I missed before. On the small table next to the cognac, partially hidden by the newspaper, lies a playing card, a single card, face down. I photograph it in place, then carefully turn it over. The Queen of Hearts, an expensive card, part of a set used in the casino's private games. But what is it doing here, alone, separate from any deck? I think about the scene again, trying to see it as a whole rather than individual elements. A man sits peacefully in his chair, apparently having died of natural causes, but there is a letter about a completed business arrangement, a playing card that should not be there, and a postcard that connects this moment to the present day. This is not a natural death. This is murder, carefully planned and expertly executed. But how? And why? I call for the coroner to examine the body more thoroughly. I also request that the suite be processed for fingerprints, though I suspect the killer was too careful to leave such obvious evidence. As I wait for the technical team to arrive, I stand at the window looking out over Monaco's harbor. The view is spectacular, yachts bobbing in the blue water, the palace visible on its rocky promontory, the mountains rising behind the city. This is a place where people come to escape reality, to live in a world of luxury and possibility. But reality has a way of intruding, even here. Someone wanted Philippe Beaumont dead, and they were clever enough to make it look like natural causes. The question is whether they were clever enough to avoid leaving any traces of their crime. I think about the postcard method I am beginning to develop. If I look at this scene like a postcard, what story is it trying to tell? A peaceful death, a man who simply fell asleep and never woke up. But postcards can lie. They show only what the photographer wants you to see. The real story is in the details that do not belong. The letter, the playing card, the too perfect arrangement of the scene. Someone composed this picture very carefully. Now I need to find out who and why. The coroner arrives at noon, a thin man with careful hands and patient eyes. Dr. Beaumont, no relation to the victim despite the name, has been examining the dead in Monaco for 20 years. He approaches his work with the methodical precision I'm learning to appreciate in this place where details matter. "Inspector Dubois," he says, setting down his medical bag. "What can you tell me about the circumstances?" I brief him on what we know so far. He listens without interruption, occasionally nodding. When I finish, he approaches the body with the same careful attention I used to examine the room. "No obvious trauma," he murmurs, more to himself than to me. "Positioning appears natural. Color is consistent with peaceful death." He works in silence for several minutes, checking pulse points, examining the eyes, testing the flexibility of the limbs. I watch from a respectful distance, making notes about his observations. "How long since death?" I ask. "Based on body temperature and rigor mortis, I would estimate between midnight and 2 in the morning, consistent with what I told you earlier." "Any immediate indication of cause?" Dr. Beaumont straightens and removes his gloves. "Nothing obvious, no signs of violence, no apparent poisoning symptoms. But I will need to conduct a full examination to be certain." "How soon can you have results?" "Tomorrow morning, if I work through the night. This case has priority." I thank him and arrange for the body to be transported to his facility. As the coroner's team prepares to move Philippe Beaumont, I take one final look at the chair where he died. Something about the positioning still troubles me, but I cannot identify exactly what. The fingerprint technician arrives as the body is being removed. She is a young woman with short dark hair and intense concentration. She introduces herself as Officer Dubois, another Dubois, though again no relation. The Riviera seems full of coincidences. "Where would you like me to start, Inspector?" The cognac glasses, the letter on the desk, and the playing card. Also the door handles and window latches. She nods and begins her work. I watch as she dusts the surfaces with fine powder, revealing the invisible traces of human contact. The process is almost artistic in its precision. While she works, I examine the casino's guest records. Sergeant Moreau has brought me the registration files for everyone who stayed in the private suites during the past week. The list is short. Only 5 guests, all regulars who visit Monaco frequently. The names mean nothing to me yet, but I copy them into my notebook. Lord Pemberton from London, Signora Benedetti from Milan, Herr Meller from Zurich, Madame Chen from Hong Kong, and Monsieur Larsen from Stockholm. An international collection of wealth and privilege. "Inspector," Officer Dubois calls from across the room. "I have something interesting." I join her at the side table with the cognac. She points to the half-full glass with her brush. "This glass has been wiped clean. No fingerprints at all, not even smudges. Someone cleaned it very carefully." "What about the other glass?" "Multiple prints, all consistent with the same person, presumably the victim." I study the glasses more carefully. They are identical, part of a matched set. But why would someone clean one glass and not the other? "The letter?" I ask. "Clean as well. No prints except around the edges where you handled it with the handkerchief." "And the playing card?" "Same thing, wiped completely clean." This confirms my suspicion that we are dealing with murder. Someone took great care to remove their traces from specific objects while leaving others untouched. But they made one mistake. They were too thorough. In a room where a man lived and worked, some objects should have fingerprints. I call Sergeant Moreau over and explain what we have found. So we are looking for someone who had access to the suite, he says. Yes, but also someone who knew enough about police procedures to clean up evidence. This was not a crime of passion. What about the casino staff? They would have access. Possible, but unlikely. The staff here has been carefully vetted. Their jobs depend on absolute discretion and trustworthiness. The guests, then? More likely, someone who knew Beaumont personally, who could visit his suite without arousing suspicion. I decide to interview the 5 guests who were staying in the private suites. If one of them is our killer, they might reveal themselves through inconsistencies in their stories. Lord Pemberton is my first interview. He is a man in his 60s with the bearing of Old English aristocracy. His suite is 2 doors down from Beaumont's, decorated in the same elegant style but with a more masculine feel. Dark wood, leather furniture, hunting prints on the walls. Terrible business, he says, offering me a seat in his sitting room. Philippa was a good man, ran an honest establishment. How well did you know him? We had been acquainted for perhaps 10 years. I visit Monaco several times a year, always stay in these suites. Philippe and I would occasionally share a drink and discuss business. What kind of business? I have investments in several European casinos. Philippe sometimes asked my advice about operational matters. Lord Pemberton speaks with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being believed without question. His manner is polite, but distant, as if this interview is a minor inconvenience. Were you aware of any problems Monsieur Beaumont might have been facing? Nothing specific. The casino business is always challenging. Regulation, competition, the occasional difficult client. But Philippe handled such matters well. Did you see him yesterday evening? Briefly. We passed in the hallway around 10:30. He was returning to his suite. I was going down to the gaming floor. How did he seem? Normal. Perhaps a bit preoccupied, but that was not unusual for Philippe. I make notes as he speaks. His story is consistent and plausible, but something in his manner suggests he is holding back information. Lord Pemberton, did Monsieur Beaumont ever mention any business arrangements that concerned him? He hesitates for just a moment before answering. Philippa was a private man. He did not discuss his personal affairs with casual acquaintances. The hesitation is slight, but I notice it. There is something he knows but chooses not to share. Is there anything else you think might be relevant to my investigation? I am afraid not, Inspector. I wish I could be more helpful. I thank him and move on to my next interview. Signora Benedetti receives me in her suite with the gracious hospitality of Italian nobility. She is perhaps 50, elegantly dressed, with a kind of timeless beauty that speaks of good breeding and careful maintenance. Such a tragedy, she says, gesturing for me to sit on a silk-covered sofa. Philippe was a gentleman of the old school. There are so few left. How long had you known him? 7 or 8 years. I come to Monaco for the opera season each year. Philippe and I shared a love of music. "Did you see him yesterday?" "Yes, we had dinner together in the casino's private dining room, just the two of us. We discussed the upcoming season at the Opera House." This is new information. What time was dinner? We met at 8, finished around 10. Philippe walked me back to my suite, then continued to his own. How did he seem during dinner? Relaxed, pleasant. We talked about music, about mutual friends in Milan. He seemed to be looking forward to the winter season. Did he mention any business concerns? Philippe never discussed business with me. Our friendship was based on cultural interests, not commercial matters. Signora Benedetti's manner is warm and open, but I sense the same careful discretion I have encountered with everyone connected to the casino. These people are accustomed to keeping secrets. Did you notice anything unusual about his behavior? Nothing at all. He was exactly as I have always known him, charming, cultured, attentive. I continue with my interviews, speaking to each of the guests in turn. Herr Miller, a Swiss banker, confirms seeing Beaumont in the hallway around 11, but claims no personal relationship beyond casual greetings. Madame Chen, an art dealer from Hong Kong, says she spoke briefly with Beaumont about a painting she was considering purchasing for a client. Monsieur Larsen, who owns shipping companies throughout Scandinavia, mentions a brief conversation about Mediterranean trade routes. Each interview adds small details to my understanding of Philippe Beaumont's final day, but none reveals an obvious motive for murder. These people move in the same social circles, share similar interests, but claim only superficial relationships with the victim. By late afternoon, I have a clearer picture of the timeline. Beaumont had dinner with Signora Benedetti until 10 o'clock. He was seen in the hallway by Lord Pemberton around 10:30. Madame Rousseau left him in his suite at 11. Sometime between then and 2 in the morning, he died. I returned to the casino office to review the security arrangements. The private suites are accessible only by key card, and the system logs every entry and exit. I request the records for the past 24 hours. The security manager, a former police officer named Girard, provides me with a computer printout showing all key card activity. The system is very reliable, he explains. Every card is coded to a specific person, and every use is recorded with a time stamp. I study the records carefully. The pattern matches what I learned from the interviews. Beaumont's card was used to enter his suite at 11:15 p.m. No other cards accessed his suite after that time. Is it possible to enter the suite without using a key card? Not without setting off alarms. The system is designed to prevent unauthorized access. What about the staff? Do they have master keys? Only the head of housekeeping and the security manager. Both cards are accounted for and show no unusual activity. This presents a puzzle. If no one entered Beaumont's suite after 11:15, how was he murdered? The windows are locked from the inside, the door shows no signs of tampering, and the security system recorded no unauthorized access. I'm beginning to think this might be a perfect crime, if such a thing exists. But I have learned that perfection is often an illusion. There's always something the killer overlooks, some detail that reveals the truth. I decide to examine the suite one more time, looking for anything I might have missed. The room has been released by the technical team, and I have it to myself. I stand in the doorway and try to see the scene with fresh eyes. The chair where Beaumont died faces the windows. From this position, he would have had a clear view of anyone entering the room. If someone came to kill him, he would have seen them approach. Yet there are no signs of struggle, no indication that he tried to defend himself. I walk to the side table and examine the cognac glasses again, one empty, one half full. If Beaumont was sharing a drink with his killer, why is there no record of anyone entering the suite? Unless the killer was already there when Beaumont returned at 11:15. I check the security records again, looking at the earlier entries. Beaumont's card shows multiple uses throughout the day, leaving for breakfast, returning for lunch, going out again in the afternoon. But there is one entry that catches my attention. At 6:30 p.m., his card was used to enter the suite, but there is no corresponding exit record until he left for dinner at 7:45. This suggests someone else was in the suite during that time, someone who left by another route or who remained hidden when Beaumont went to dinner. I call Gerard back to the office. Is it possible for someone to leave the suite without using a key card? From the inside, yes. The door can be opened manually without triggering the security system, but it would lock automatically when closed. So someone could enter with Beaumont, hide while he went to dinner, then kill him when he returned. Theoretically, yes, but they would be trapped in the suite afterward. Unless they had another way out. I return to the suite and examine the windows more carefully. They are locked from the inside, but the locks are simple mechanisms that could be manipulated from outside with the right tools. The suite is on the 3rd floor, but there is a narrow ledge running along the building's facade. It would be dangerous, but not impossible, for someone to exit through the window and make their way to another part of the building, especially someone with experience in such matters. I am beginning to see the outline of a plan. The killer entered the suite with Beaumont earlier in the evening, perhaps hidden in a closet or bathroom while he went to dinner. When Beaumont returned and settled down with his cognac, the killer emerged and somehow caused his death without leaving obvious traces. But how? The coroner found no signs of violence or poisoning. How do you kill someone without leaving evidence? I think about the playing card again, the Queen of Hearts. In many card games, the Queen of Hearts has special significance. It can be a penalty card, a wild card, or a trump card, depending on the rules. But what does it mean in this context? I photograph the card's position again and make detailed notes about its placement. Everything in this room was arranged deliberately. The killer wanted to send a message, but I do not yet understand what it means. As evening approaches, I realize I need more information about Philippe Beaumont's business dealings. The letter mentioned a final payment and a completed arrangement. This suggests an ongoing relationship with someone identified only as M.R. I call Madame Rousseau and ask her to meet me at the casino office. She arrives within minutes, still dressed in the same navy suit, but looking more composed than she did this morning. Madame Rousseau, I need to ask you about Monsieur Beaumont's business relationships. Did he ever mention anyone with the initials M.R.? She considers the question carefully. Not that I recall. Philippe dealt with many people, but he usually referred to them by name or company. What about recent financial transactions, large payments or unusual arrangements. Nothing out of the ordinary. The casino's finances are quite stable. Philippe was very conservative in his business practices. Did he have any personal investments or side businesses? He owned some real estate in Monaco and Nice, a few stocks and bonds, nothing that would generate the kind of money mentioned in that letter. I show her a copy of the letter. She reads it carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I have never seen this before," she says, "and I handle all of Philippe's correspondence. Could he have had business dealings you were not aware of?" "It is possible, but unlikely. Philippe trusted me completely. He shared everything with me." But as she says this, I notice a slight hesitation in her voice. There is something she is not telling me, something she knows but does not want to reveal. "Madame Rousseau, is there anything about Monsieur Beaumont's recent behavior that seemed unusual? Any changes in his routine or mood?" She is quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with some internal decision. "There was something," she finally says. "About 3 weeks ago, Philippe received a telephone call that upset him greatly. He took it in his private office with the door closed, but I could hear him speaking in an agitated voice." "Did you hear what he said?" "Only fragments. Something about keeping our agreement and the price was already paid. When he came out, he looked very troubled." "Did he explain what the call was about?" "No. He said it was a personal matter that would be resolved soon. He asked me not to mention it to anyone." This could be significant. A telephone call 3 weeks ago, followed by a letter yesterday confirming that a business arrangement was complete. The timing suggests these events are connected. Did he receive any other unusual calls or letters during that period? "A few calls that he took privately, and yesterday he seemed very relieved when that letter arrived. He said the matter was finally closed." I make detailed notes about this conversation. The pattern is becoming clearer. Philippe Beaumont was involved in some kind of arrangement that caused him considerable stress. Yesterday, he received confirmation that the arrangement was complete. Last night, he was murdered. The question is whether his death was connected to this mysterious business deal, or was simply an unfortunate coincidence. As I prepare to leave the casino, I notice Madame Rousseau watching me with an expression I cannot quite read. There is concern there, certainly, but also something else. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. "Madame Rousseau, is there anything else you think I should know?" She shakes her head, but her eyes do not meet mine. "I have told you everything I can, Inspector. Everything she can, not everything she knows. The distinction is important." I walk back to my small apartment in Nice as the sun sets over the Mediterranean. The day has raised more questions than it has answered, but I am beginning to see the shape of the mystery. Philippe Beaumont was killed by someone who had intimate knowledge of his habits and access to his private suite. The murder was carefully planned and expertly executed, designed to look like natural death. But the killer made mistakes. The cleaned fingerprints, the positioned playing card, the letter that arrived too conveniently. These details reveal a human hand behind what was meant to appear as natural death. Tomorrow I will have the coroner's report. I will also begin investigating Philippe Beaumont's financial records more thoroughly. Somewhere in the details of his business life, I will find the connection to MR and the arrangement that may have cost him his life. As I prepare for bed, I think about the postcard that started this investigation 40 years in the future. "The game is not over," it said. But what game? And who is still playing after all these years? I place my notebook on the bedside table and turn off the light. Tomorrow will bring new revelations, new pieces of the puzzle. But tonight, I am content to have made a beginning. In my experience, the most complex mysteries often have the simplest solutions. The challenge is learning to see past the elaborate deceptions to the human truth beneath. The Queen of Hearts lies in an evidence bag at the police station, waiting to reveal her secrets. Every card tells a story, and every story has an ending. I am determined to find this one, no matter how long it takes or how many games I must learn to play. The coroner's report arrives at 8 the next morning, delivered to my apartment by a young officer who apologizes for the early hour. I pour myself coffee from the small pot I keep on my kitchen stove and settle at my table to read Dr. Beaumont's findings. The report is thorough and precise, written in the careful language of medical science. Philippe Beaumont died of cardiac arrest, but the circumstances are unusual. His heart simply stopped beating, with no apparent cause. No signs of disease, no blocked arteries, no indication of the kind of stress that typically triggers such events in healthy men. But there is something else. Dr. Beaumont found traces of a substance in the victim's blood, something he cannot immediately identify. The concentration is minimal, barely detectable, but it should not be there. He has sent samples to a laboratory in Paris for more detailed analysis. Curious, I murmured to myself, making notes in the margin of the report. A mysterious substance in the blood, a heart that stopped for no apparent reason, and a crime scene arranged like a postcard. The pieces are beginning to form a pattern, though I cannot yet see the complete picture. I dress carefully, in my best suit, a dark gray wool that I purchased when I first arrived on the Riviera. Here, appearance matters. People judge you by the quality of your clothing, the shine of your shoes, the precision of your grooming. I have learned to pay attention to such details. The morning is bright and clear as I walk to the casino. Monaco wakes slowly, like a beautiful woman taking time with her toilette. The streets are clean, the buildings freshly painted, the flowers in the public gardens perfectly arranged. Everything here is maintained to the highest standards. I arrive at the casino to find Madame Rousseau waiting in the office, a stack of files on the desk before her. She's been crying again. Her eyes are red despite the careful application of makeup. "Inspector Dubois," she says, rising as I enter. "I have brought Philippe's personal files as you requested." "Thank you. I know this is difficult for you." She nods and sits back down, her hands folded in her lap. "I want to help find whoever did this. Philippe deserves justice." I take the chair across from her and open the first file. Philippe Beaumont's financial records are meticulously organized, each transaction documented and categorized. His income from the casino is substantial, but not extraordinary. His expenses are those of a man who appreciates quality, but is not extravagant. But as I examine the records more closely, I notice something interesting. Over the past 6 months, there have been several large cash deposits to his personal account. The amounts vary, sometimes 10,000 francs, sometimes 20,000, but they appear regularly, always in cash, always with no explanation of their source. Madame Rousseau, can you explain these deposits? She leans forward to look at the records, her brow furrowed. I have never seen these before. Philippe handled his personal banking himself. The amounts are significant. Where would he get this much cash? I do not know. The casino's profits are deposited directly into the business accounts. Philippe's salary was paid by check. I make notes about the deposits, calculating the total. Over 6 months, Philippe Beaumont received nearly 200,000 francs in unexplained cash. This is far more than his legitimate income would justify. Did Monsieur Beaumont have any hobbies or interests that might generate income? Collecting, perhaps, or investments in art? He collected rare books, but as a hobby, not for profit. He sometimes bought paintings for the casino, but those were business expenses. I continue through the files, looking for any clue about the source of the mysterious income. In a folder marked Personal Correspondence, I find several letters that catch my attention. They are written on expensive paper, similar to the letter found in his suite, but these are signed with full names. The first is from a Monsieur Larsen, the same Larsen who is staying in the private suites. It thanks Philippe for his discretion in a delicate matter and mentions the agreed compensation. The second is from Lord Pemberton, expressing gratitude for Philippe's assistance with a private concern and confirming payment as discussed. Madame Rousseau, did you know that Monsieur Beaumont was providing services to his guests beyond normal hospitality? She looks genuinely surprised. What kind of services? That is what I intend to find out. I gather the relevant files and ask Madame Rousseau to remain available for further questions. Then I walk to the private suites to conduct more detailed interviews with the guests. This time, I will ask more pointed questions. Lord Pemberton receives me in his sitting room, but his manner is less cordial than yesterday. He seems nervous, his usual aristocratic composure slightly strained. Inspector, I hope this will not take long. I have business to attend to. I will be as brief as possible. Lord Pemberton, I have found evidence that you made payments to Monsieur Beaumont for personal services. Can you explain the nature of these services? His face flushes slightly, and he looks away. I am not sure what you mean. I have a letter in your handwriting thanking him for his discretion and confirming payment. What were you paying him for? Lord Pemberton is silent for a long moment, clearly struggling with how much to reveal. Finally he sighs and meets my eyes. Philippe helped me with a family matter, something that required absolute discretion. What kind of family matter? My son has gambling debts, serious debts to some very unpleasant people in London. Philippe arranged for the debts to be paid quietly, without publicity. And in return, you paid him a fee? A substantial fee, yes. Philippe had connections throughout Europe. He could arrange things that others could not. This is a new side of Philippe Beaumont, not just a casino owner, but someone who provided discreet services to wealthy clients with delicate problems. How many times did you use these services? 3 times over the past year. Each time, Philippe handled the matter with complete professionalism. Did you know of other clients who used similar services? Lord Pemberton hesitates. Philippe was very discreet. He never discussed other clients' affairs. But you suspected there were others? A man with Philippe's connections and reputation. Yes, I assumed he helped other people as well. I make detailed notes about this conversation. Philippe Beaumont was running a side business, using his position and connections to solve problems for wealthy clients. This could provide multiple motives for murder. My interview with Monsieur Larson reveals a similar pattern. He paid Philippe to arrange the quiet resolution of a shipping dispute that could have damaged his company's reputation. Signora Benedetti used Philippe's services to recover stolen artwork without involving the police. Each client paid substantial fees for absolute discretion. But when I interview Madame Chen and Herr Miller, they deny any knowledge of such services. Their relationships with Philippe were purely social, they claim. Either they are lying, or Philippe was selective about which clients he approached with his special services. By afternoon, I have a clearer picture of Philippe Beaumont's secret business. He used his position at the casino and his extensive network of contacts to provide discreet problem-solving services for wealthy clients. The work was lucrative but dangerous, the kind of business that could easily make enemies. I returned to the police station to review what I have learned. The mysterious cash deposits now make sense. They were payments for Philippe's consulting services. But this raises new questions. If his business was so successful, why was he stressed about the arrangement mentioned in the letter? And who is M.R.? I call Dr. Beaumont to check on the laboratory results from Paris. The analysis is not complete, he tells me, but the preliminary results are interesting. The substance appears to be a plant extract, something exotic that is not commonly available. Poisonous. Not in the traditional sense, but it could affect heart rhythm in someone with the right sensitivity. The laboratory is trying to identify the specific compound. A plant extract that affects heart rhythm. This could explain how Philippe was killed without obvious signs of poisoning. But how was it administered? There were no injection marks, no signs that he was forced to consume anything. I think about the cognac glasses again. One empty, one half full. One wiped clean of fingerprints. If the poison was in the cognac, why was only one glass cleaned, unless... I call the laboratory and ask them to test the residue from both glasses. If my theory is correct, the poison was not in the cognac itself, but on the glass. Someone coated the inside of one glass with the plant extract, then served Philippe his usual evening drink. He would have consumed the poison without knowing it, and the killer could drink safely from the other glass. But this still does not explain how the killer entered and left the suite without being detected by the security system. I decide to examine the building's exterior more carefully. If someone left through the window, there might be traces of their passage. I walk around the casino, studying the facade from different angles. The building is elegant but old, with decorative stonework that provides handholds for someone with climbing experience. The ledge outside Philippe's window is narrow but navigable. More importantly, it connects to a fire escape on the building's side that leads to an alley behind the casino. I climb the fire escape to examine the route more closely. It would be dangerous, especially at night, but not impossible for someone in good physical condition. At the third-floor level, I find scratches on the metal railing that could have been made by someone climbing over from the ledge. This gives me a possible explanation for the killer's escape route, but it raises another question. Who among the suspects has the physical ability and climbing experience to navigate this route in the dark? I return to the casino and request the guest registration forms for all 5 suspects. The forms require detailed personal information, including emergency contacts and medical conditions. Most people fill them out carelessly, but sometimes they reveal useful details. Lord Pemberton's form lists his age as 62 and mentions a heart condition requiring medication, unlikely to be our climber. Signora Benedetti is 50 and lists no medical conditions, but her elegant appearance suggests someone more comfortable in drawing rooms than scaling buildings. Herr Miller is 45 and lists mountain climbing as a hobby. Interesting. Madame Chen is 38 with no medical conditions mentioned. Monsieur Larsen is 51 and lists sailing and rock climbing among his interests. 3 of the 5 guests have the physical capability to escape through the window. But which one had a motive to kill Philippe Beaumont? I spend the evening reviewing all the evidence, trying to see the connections I might have missed. The plant extract, the climbing route, the secret business, the mysterious MR. Each piece is significant, but I cannot yet see how they fit together. As I prepare for bed, I think about the postcard that will arrive 40 years in the future. The game is not over, it says, but what game began with Philippe Beaumont's death, and who has been playing it all these years? The call from the Paris laboratory comes at 7 in the morning, waking me from uneasy dreams. The technician's voice is excited, the way scientists sound when they discover something unexpected. Inspector Dubois, we have identified the substance in Monsieur Beaumont's blood. It is an extract from Digitalis purpurea, foxglove, but it has been chemically modified in a very sophisticated way. I sit up in bed, suddenly alert. Modified how? The active compounds have been concentrated and combined with a delivery agent that makes them absorb through the skin. Someone with considerable knowledge of chemistry created this. How would it be administered? It could be applied to any surface the victim would touch. A glass, a doorknob, even paper. The victim would absorb it through their skin without knowing. This explains the cleaned cognac glass. The killer coated the inside of the glass with the modified foxglove extract, then served Philippe his evening drink. When he picked up the glass, the poison absorbed through his skin. Within hours, his heart would stop beating. How much would be needed? Very little. A few drops would be sufficient for someone of average weight and health. And the preparation? How difficult would it be to create this substance? Extremely difficult. You would need advanced knowledge of organic chemistry and access to specialized equipment. This is not something an amateur could produce. I thank the technician and hang up, my mind racing. The killer is not just someone with climbing ability and access to Philippe's suite. They are also a skilled chemist, capable of creating a sophisticated poison that leaves minimal traces. I dress quickly and walk to the casino, arriving before the morning staff. The building is quiet, peaceful, but I now see it differently. Somewhere in this elegant establishment, a killer moved with careful precision, executing a plan that required months of preparation. Madame Rousseau arrives at 8. looking tired but determined. She has brought more files, Philippe's appointment calendars and business correspondence going back 2 years. "I thought these might be helpful," she says, setting the boxes on the desk. Philippe kept detailed records of all his meetings. I begin reviewing the calendars, looking for patterns in Philippe's appointments. Most are routine business meetings, but I notice several entries marked only with initials. MR appears frequently, usually for evening appointments in Philippe's private suite. "Madame Rousseau, do you recognize these initials, MR?" She studies the calendar entries, her brow furrowed. I remember Philippe mentioning someone by those initials, but I never met them. The appointments were always private after business hours. How often did these meetings occur? Perhaps once a month for the past year. Philippe always seemed tense before these appointments and relieved afterward. I count the entries, 12 meetings over the past year, each one marked with the same careful notation. This was clearly an important relationship, but one Philippe kept completely separate from his normal business. Did he ever mention what these meetings were about? Never, but I had the impression they were not entirely voluntary. Philippe seemed obligated to attend them. This suggests blackmail or coercion rather than a normal business relationship. Someone with the initials Eminor had some kind of hold over Philippe Beaumont, forcing him into regular meetings that caused him considerable stress. I continue through the files, looking for any other references to MR. In a folder of personal correspondence, I find several notes written on plain paper with no letterhead. The handwriting is distinctive, flowing, confident, with an artistic quality that suggests education and refinement. The notes are brief and cryptic. Our arrangement continues to be mutually beneficial. MR. Your cooperation is appreciated and will be remembered, MR. The final phase of our agreement will begin soon, MR. The last note is dated just 2 weeks ago. It reads, "Prepare for the conclusion of our business. Payment will be made as promised. MR." This matches the timeline Madame Rousseau described. Philippe received a stressful phone call 3 weeks ago, followed by this note promising conclusion of their business. Yesterday, he received the letter confirming that the arrangement was complete. Last night, he was murdered. The pattern suggests that MR was planning to end their relationship with Philippe, but something went wrong. Perhaps Philippe threatened to expose their arrangement or demanded more money, or simply knew too much to be allowed to live. I ask Madame Rousseau to make copies of all the MR correspondence while I continue my investigation. I want to examine the handwriting more closely and see if I can trace the paper or ink. My next step is to learn more about the guests' backgrounds, particularly their scientific or chemical knowledge. I call the police stations in their home cities, requesting information about Herr Müller, Madame Chen, and Monsieur Larsen, the 3 suspects with the physical ability to escape through the window. The responses arrive by afternoon. Herr Müller is a banker with no scientific background, though he is indeed an experienced mountain climber. Madame Chen studied art history at university, but has no chemistry training. Monsieur Larsen is more interesting. He studied chemical engineering before entering the shipping business, and his companies transport industrial chemicals throughout Europe. This makes Larsen a strong suspect. He has the climbing ability to escape through the window, the chemical knowledge to create the poison, and access to the materials needed for its preparation. But what would be his motive for killing Philippe? I decide to interview him again, this time with more specific questions about his background and relationship with the victim. Monsieur Larsen receives me in his suite with the same polite courtesy as before, but I notice subtle signs of tension. His hands move restlessly. His eyes do not quite meet mine. His smile seems forced. "Inspector, I hope you are making progress with your investigation." "Some progress, yes. I have learned that Monsieur Beaumont provided special services to certain clients. Were you aware of this?" "I may have heard rumors, but Philippe was very discreet about such matters." "Yet you used these services yourself. You paid him to resolve a shipping dispute." Larsen's composure slips slightly. "That was a legitimate business consultation. Philippe had contacts in the shipping industry." "A consultation that required absolute secrecy and substantial payment?" "The matter was sensitive. Publicity could have damaged my company's reputation." I make notes as he speaks, watching his body language carefully. He is hiding something, but I am not yet sure what. "Monsieur Larsen, I understand you studied chemical engineering at university." "Yes, many years ago, before I entered the family business." "Do you maintain any interest in chemistry? Keep up with developments in the field?" "Not really. My focus is entirely on shipping now." But his answer comes too quickly, too smoothly. In my experience, people who claim to have forgotten their education usually remember more than they admit. "What about your ship's cargo? Do you transport chemicals?" "Among other things, yes. Industrial chemicals, pharmaceuticals, research materials. We handle many different types of cargo." "Including botanical extracts, plant-based compounds?" For just a moment his eyes widen slightly. Then he recovers his composure. "Occasionally. There is a growing market for natural compounds in the pharmaceutical industry." I lean forward slightly, watching his reaction. "Are you familiar with digitalis purpurea, foxglove?" This time, the reaction is unmistakable. His face pales, and his hands grip the arms of his chair. Why do you ask?" "Because that is what killed Philippe Beaumont. A modified extract of foxglove applied to his cognac glass." Larsen is silent for a long moment, clearly struggling with how to respond. When he speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. "I did not kill Philippe." "But you know about the poison." "I know about foxglove, yes. My ships have transported digitalis compounds for pharmaceutical companies, but I did not create any poison." "Yet you have the knowledge and access to materials that would be required." "So do many people in the chemical industry. That does not make them murderers." I study his face carefully. He is frightened, certainly, but I am not convinced he is lying about the murder. There is something else, something he knows but does not want to reveal. "Monsieur Larsen, if you did not kill Philippe Beaumont, then you must help me find who did. What are you not telling me?" He looks out the window at the harbor, his expression troubled. Finally, he turns back to me. "Philippe was being blackmailed." "By whom?" "I do not know their identity, but Philippe told me about it several months ago. Someone had discovered information about his special services and was demanding regular payments." "Why did he tell you this?" Because I was one of his clients. The blackmailer threatened to expose all of us if Philippe did not cooperate. This puts the case in an entirely new light. If Philippe was being blackmailed, then his death might have been the result of a blackmail scheme gone wrong. What kind of information did the blackmailer have? Details about the services Philippe provided, names of clients, amounts paid, the nature of the problems he solved, information that could ruin reputations and destroy careers. Did Philippe pay the blackmail demands? For a while, yes, but recently, he said he was going to end it. He had found a way to turn the tables on his blackmailer. What way? He did not tell me the details, only that he had discovered something that would give him leverage. He seemed confident that the problem would be resolved soon. This matches the timeline of events. Philippe discovered something that gave him power over his blackmailer, leading to the final confrontation that resulted in his death. Monsieur Larsen, do you have any idea who the blackmailer might be? Someone with access to Philippe's private affairs, someone who could observe his meetings and learn about his clients. Someone inside the casino? Possibly. Or someone who had been watching him for a long time. I thank Larsen for his honesty and ask him to remain available for further questions. As I leave his suite, I consider what I have learned. Philippe Beaumont was being blackmailed by someone who knew about his secret business. He found a way to fight back, but his blackmailer killed him before he could use his leverage. The question now is, who had access to Philippe's private information and the ability to create the sophisticated poison that killed him? I return to the casino office and ask Madame Rousseau to join me. It is time to ask her some difficult questions. Madame Rousseau, I have learned that Monsieur Beaumont was being blackmailed. Did you know about this? Her face goes white, and she grips the edge of the desk. Blackmailed? By whom? That is what I am trying to determine. But the blackmailer had detailed information about Philippe's special services and his clients, someone with intimate knowledge of his business. You think it was someone inside the casino? It is possible. Who else would have access to his appointment, calendars, his correspondence, his private meetings? She is quiet for a long moment, clearly shaken by this revelation. When she speaks, her voice is barely audible. There is something I have not told you. What? About 3 months ago, I noticed that someone had been in Philippe's office after hours. Papers were slightly out of place. Files had been moved. I mentioned it to Philippe, but he said it was nothing to worry about. Did this happen more than once? Several times, always very subtle, as if someone was trying not to be noticed. But I know Philippe's habits. I could tell when things had been disturbed. Did you see anyone in the office who should not have been there? No, but the cleaning staff has access, and the security guards make rounds through all the offices. I make notes about this new information. Someone had been systematically searching Philippe's office, gathering information about his secret business. This person had the access and opportunity to learn everything they needed for blackmail. Madame Rousseau, I need a list of everyone who has access to Philippe's office after hours. Staff, security, anyone with keys or codes. I will prepare it immediately. As she works on the list, I think about the handwriting in the MR notes. Flowing, confident, artistic. The handwriting of someone educated and refined, someone comfortable with written communication. I ask Madame Rousseau to provide samples of handwriting from all the casino staff who had access to Philippe's office. If MR works at the casino, their handwriting will be in the personnel files. By evening, I have a clearer picture of the crime. Philippe Beaumont was killed by someone who had been blackmailing him for months. This person had access to his office, knowledge of chemistry, and the physical ability to escape through his window. They created a sophisticated poison, applied it to his cognac glass, and left him to die while they climbed to safety. But I still do not know the identity of MR. The handwriting samples from the casino staff show no obvious matches to the blackmail notes. Either the blackmailer disguised their writing, or they are not among the current employees. As I walk home through the quiet streets of Monaco, I think about the postcard that will arrive 40 years in the future. Someone is still playing this game, still connected to the events of this night. The murder of Philippe Beaumont is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning. Tomorrow I will expand my investigation beyond the casino staff. Somewhere in Monaco's elegant society, a killer is hiding behind a respectable facade. But every facade has cracks, and every killer makes mistakes. I'm determined to find both. I wake before dawn with a sudden clarity that sometimes comes after days of confusion. The pieces of the puzzle have been rearranging themselves in my subconscious, and now they form a pattern I can finally see. I dress quickly and walk to the casino through the empty streets, my mind racing with connections I had missed before. The casino is closed at this hour, but the security guard recognizes me and lets me into the building. I go directly to Philippe's suite, now sealed and empty, but still holding its secrets. I stand in the doorway and try to see the scene as I did that first morning, but with everything I have learned since. A man sits peacefully in his chair, apparently having died of natural causes, but the scene is composed like a postcard, too perfect, too carefully arranged. The cognac glasses, the letter, the playing card, all positioned with deliberate precision. Someone wanted to tell a story with this scene, but not the true story. I think about the Queen of Hearts lying on the table. In many card games, the Queen of Hearts is a penalty card, something you try to avoid. But in others, it is the most valuable card in the deck. The meaning depends on the game being played. What game was Philippe Beaumont playing, and who was playing it with him? I walk to the window and examine the lock mechanism again. The scratches on the metal are subtle but definite. Someone did escape this way. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that the window escape was not the killer's primary plan. It was their backup plan, used only when something went wrong. The original plan was much simpler and more elegant. The killer never intended to be trapped in the suite at all. I returned to the police station and spread all the evidence across my desk: photographs, reports, witness statements, handwriting samples. Somewhere in this collection of facts lies the truth I have been seeking. The handwriting in the MR notes is distinctive, but I have been looking for it in the wrong places. I assumed MR was someone with regular access to the casino, but what if they were someone who visited occasionally? Someone who could observe Philippe's routine without being noticed. I pull out the guest registration forms again and study them more carefully. Most are filled out in ordinary handwriting, but one catches my attention. The writing is careful, controlled, but there are subtle similarities to the MR notes, the way certain letters are formed, the spacing between words. The form belongs to Madame Chen, the art dealer from Hong Kong. I examine her registration more closely. She has been visiting Monaco regularly for the past 2 years, always staying in the private suites, always for exactly 1 week. Her visits coincide with Philippe's appointment calendar entries for MR. But there is something else. According to her form, Madame Chen studied chemistry at university before switching to art history. She would have the knowledge needed to create the modified foxglove extract. I call the Hong Kong police and request information about Madame Chen's background. The response comes within hours, thanks to the time difference. Madame Chen is indeed an art dealer, but she is also something else. A former research chemist who left academia under suspicious circumstances involving the theft of laboratory materials. The pieces are falling into place, but I need more evidence before I can make an arrest. I decide to search Madame Chen's suite. But I must be careful. If she is our killer, she is extremely dangerous and will not hesitate to kill again if cornered. I obtain a search warrant and gather a team of officers. We approach Madame Chen's suite quietly, but when we knock, there is no answer. The security manager opens the door with his master key, and we enter carefully. The suite is immaculate, as if it has been thoroughly cleaned. But in the bathroom, I find what I am looking for, a small glass vial hidden behind the toilet tank. The vial contains traces of a clear liquid that smells faintly of flowers. "Bag this as evidence," I tell the technician. "I want it tested immediately." We search the rest of the suite, but find nothing else of significance. Madame Chen has been very careful to remove any incriminating evidence, but the vial is enough to confirm my suspicions. I call the laboratory in Paris and ask them to test the liquid in the vial. The results come back within hours. It is the same modified foxglove extract that killed Philippe Beaumont. Now I need to find Madame Chen. I check with the hotel staff and learn that she left early this morning, claiming a family emergency required her immediate return to Hong Kong. But when I contact the airport, I discover she never boarded her flight. She is still in Monaco, hiding somewhere, waiting for the investigation to cool down before making her escape. But where would she go? She cannot leave the country without using her passport, and all the airports and border crossings are being watched. I think about her background as an art dealer. She would know the art community in Monaco, the galleries and private collectors who might provide temporary shelter. I begin calling the major galleries, asking if they have seen Madame Chen or if she has contacted them. The third call yields results. The owner of a small gallery in the old town mentions that Madame Chen stopped by yesterday evening, asking about storage space for some valuable pieces she needed to keep secure temporarily. "Did she leave anything with you?" I ask. "A small suitcase. She said it contained rare manuscripts that needed climate-controlled storage." "Is she still there?" "No, but she said she would return this evening to collect her items." I arrange for surveillance of the gallery and position officers at all the exits from the old town. If Madame Chen returns for her suitcase, we will be ready. While we wait, I review the case one more time, making sure I understand all the details. Madame Chen had been blackmailing Philippe for months, using information she gathered during her regular visits to the casino. She observed his meetings with clients, learned about his secret business, and used that knowledge to extort money from him. But Philippe discovered something that gave him leverage: over her, perhaps evidence of her theft from the Hong Kong laboratory, or proof of other crimes she had committed. He threatened to expose her unless she ended the blackmail. Rather than risk exposure, Madame Chen decided to kill him. She prepared the modified foxglove extract using her chemistry knowledge and materials she could obtain through her art-dealing contacts. During her visit to Monaco, she applied the poison to Philippe's cognac glass, knowing his evening routine. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Philippe would die of apparent heart failure, and Madame Chen would be just another guest with no obvious connection to the victim. But something went wrong. Perhaps Philippe realized what was happening, or perhaps she was seen leaving his suite. She was forced to escape through the window, using the climbing skills she had developed during her travels to remote locations for art acquisitions. The Queen of Hearts was her signature, a calling card that identified her as the killer to anyone who understood the game she was playing. In her mind, she was the queen, and Philippe was just another victim in her deadly game. As evening approaches, I position myself across the street from the gallery, watching for any sign of Madame Chen. The old town is quiet, with only a few tourists wandering the narrow streets. The gallery owner has been instructed to act normally if she appears. At 7 o'clock, I see a figure approaching the gallery from the shadows of a side street. It is Madame Chen, but she looks different. Her hair is covered by a scarf, her elegant clothes replaced by simple tourist attire. She moves carefully, checking for surveillance before approaching the gallery door. I signal to my team, and we move in quietly. Madame Chen enters the gallery, and we wait for her to collect her suitcase before making our arrest. I want to catch her with the evidence in her possession. Through the gallery window, I see her speaking with the owner, who points toward the back room where her suitcase is stored. She disappears from view, and I count to 30 before giving the signal to move. We enter the gallery quickly, but quietly. Madame Chen is in the back room, kneeling beside an open suitcase. Inside, I can see laboratory equipment, chemical supplies, and what appears to be a substantial amount of cash. Madame Chen, I say, stepping into the room, you are under arrest for the murder of Philippe Beaumont. She looks up at me with no surprise, as if she has been expecting this moment. Her composure is remarkable. Even caught red-handed, she maintains the elegant dignity that has served her so well in her criminal career. Inspector Dubois, she says, rising gracefully to her feet, I wondered when you would find me. You made it easy by returning for your escape kit. She glances at the suitcase with a slight smile. I could not leave without it. The equipment is quite expensive, and the cash represents years of careful planning. Planning to blackmail and murder innocent people? Philippe Beaumont was hardly innocent. He profited from the secrets and weaknesses of others. I simply used his own methods against him. And when he threatened to expose you, you killed him. He became greedy. Our arrangement was mutually beneficial until he decided he wanted more than money. He wanted power over me. I signal to the officers to handcuff her while I examine the contents of the suitcase. Along with the laboratory equipment and cash, there are detailed files on several prominent Monaco residents. Potential blackmail targets, I assume. How long have you been running this operation? Several years. Monaco is full of wealthy people with secrets they will pay to protect. Felipe was just one of many sources of income. And the foxglove extract, how did you develop it? A simple modification of existing compounds. I learned the technique during my research career, before I discovered that crime pays better than science. As we escort Madame Chen from the gallery, she maintains her composure with remarkable dignity. Even in handcuffs, she carries herself like the successful businesswoman she pretended to be. "Inspector," she says as we reach the police car, "may I ask how you identified me?" "Your handwriting and the fact that you knew too much about chemistry for an art dealer." I should have been more careful about the notes." "You should have been more careful about many things. Murder is not a game, Madame Chen." She looks at me with something that might be respect. Perhaps not. But it was an interesting challenge while it lasted. The confession comes easily once Madame Chen realizes the evidence against her is overwhelming. She sits in the interview room with the same elegant composure she maintained throughout her criminal career, answering my questions with the precision of someone who takes pride in her work. "I began observing Philippe 2 years ago," she explains, her voice calm and measured. "His reputation for discretion made him an obvious target for my business model." "Your business model being blackmail." "Information brokerage. I prefer more professional terminology." I make notes as she speaks, documenting every detail of her confession. The case will go to trial, and I want to ensure that justice is served properly. "How did you gather information about his clients?" Felipe was predictable in his habits. He always met clients in his suite, always at the same times, always followed the same routines. I simply observed and recorded. "From where?" "The suite next to his was often vacant. I arranged to stay there during my visits, using listening devices to monitor his conversations." "And the chemistry knowledge? How did you develop the poison?" "I maintained my laboratory skills after leaving Hong Kong. The art world provided excellent cover for acquiring unusual materials." She describes the process with the detached professionalism of a scientist discussing a research project. The modified foxglove extract was her own creation, designed to be absorbed through the skin and cause delayed cardiac arrest. She tested it on laboratory animals before using it on Philippe. "Why did you decide to kill him? The blackmail was profitable." "Philippe discovered my real identity. He threatened to expose my past unless I paid him a substantial sum. The student was trying to become the teacher." "So you poisoned his cognac glass." I applied the extract to the inside of the glass during my visit that afternoon. Philippe's evening routine was invariable. He always had cognac before bed, always used the same glass. "And then you escaped through the window." "That was not the original plan. I intended to leave through the door after he fell asleep, making it appear that he died alone. But he realized something was wrong and tried to call for help. I had to improvise." The window escape was indeed her backup plan, requiring the climbing skills she had developed during art acquisition trips to remote locations. She made her way to the fire escape and down to the alley, then returned to her own suite through the main entrance. The Queen of Hearts, what was its significance? My signature. In the card game of hearts, the Queen is worth 13 penalty points. Unlucky for whoever receives her. I thought it was appropriate. "And the letter confirming the end of your arrangement." I wrote it to make Philippe feel secure, to ensure he would follow his normal routine that evening. He needed to believe the threat was over. I close my notebook and study her face. Even now, facing life in prison, she shows no remorse for her crimes. To her, murder was simply a business decision, no different from any other transaction. Madame Chen, do you feel any regret for what you have done? Regret is an unproductive emotion. I made calculated decisions based on available information. Some succeeded, others did not. Philippe Beaumont is dead because of your calculated decisions. Philippe Beaumont is dead because he became greedy and tried to reverse our relationship. He understood the risks of the game he was playing. The trial takes place 3 months later. Madame Chen's confession, combined with the physical evidence and witness testimony, makes the prosecution's case straightforward. She is convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the case has broader implications. Philippe's secret business exposed the vulnerabilities of Monaco's wealthy elite, leading to several other investigations. The casino implements new security measures, and the private suites are redesigned to prevent unauthorized access. For me, the case represents a turning point in my career. I've learned to see beyond the obvious, to recognize that even the most elegant facades can hide deadly secrets. The postcard method, viewing crime scenes as composed pictures, proves its value in revealing the artificial elements that betray a killer's hand. 6 months after the trial, I receive a letter from the prison where Madame Chen is serving her sentence. She writes to inform me that she has been teaching chemistry to other inmates, helping them understand the scientific principles behind various criminal techniques. Even in prison, she continues to view crime as an intellectual exercise. The letter includes a postcard, Monte Carlo, 1984, the same image that will arrive at my villa 40 years in the future. On the back, she has written, "The game is not over. There are always new players, new rules, new challenges. Thank you for making it interesting. M.R." I file the postcard with the other evidence from the case, not knowing that it will somehow find its way to me decades later. Some mysteries extend beyond their apparent resolution, creating echoes that resonate through time. The casino returns to its normal operations, but I notice changes in the atmosphere. The staff is more cautious, the guests more aware of their vulnerability. The illusion of perfect security has been shattered, replaced by a more realistic understanding of the risks that wealth and privilege can attract. Madame Rousseau continues as the casino's business manager, but she implements new procedures to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information. She also begins working with the police to identify other potential blackmail schemes targeting Monaco's elite. "Inspector Dubois," she says during one of our meetings, "I have been thinking about Philippe's other clients. Some of them may still be vulnerable to blackmail. Do you have specific concerns?" There is an art dealer in Nice, Madame Rousseau, no relation to me, despite the name. Philippe helped her with a problem involving stolen paintings. If someone else has that information, I make a note to investigate this lead. The art world, with its combination of enormous wealth and questionable provenance, seems particularly susceptible to criminal exploitation. I will look into it. Do you have her contact information? She owns a gallery called Villa Marguerite in the hills above Nice. Philippe visited her there several times over the past year. Villa Marguerite. The name resonates with something I cannot quite place, a sense of unfinished business that will require my attention. But that is a concern for another day. As I walk home through Monaco's elegant streets, I reflect on what I have learned from this case. Crime, I now understand, is not always about passion or desperation. Sometimes it is simply business, conducted by people who view human life as just another commodity to be traded. The wealthy and powerful are not immune to criminal predation. Indeed, their wealth and secrets make them attractive targets for sophisticated criminals like Madame Chen. The challenge for law enforcement is to recognize that elegance and education can mask the most dangerous criminals. I have also learned the value of patience and careful observation. The truth is often hidden in plain sight, disguised by the very obviousness of its presentation. A crime scene that appears too perfect probably is too perfect. A death that seems too convenient probably is too convenient. The postcard method has proven its worth, but I realize it is just the beginning of a more comprehensive approach to criminal investigation. Every crime tells a story, but the story the criminal wants to tell is rarely the true story. My job is to read between the lines, to see the contradictions and inconsistencies that reveal the human hand behind apparently natural events. As I reach my apartment, I find another piece of mail waiting for me, an invitation to a dinner party at Villa Marguerite, hosted by an art collector who wishes to discuss a matter of mutual interest. The invitation is elegant, printed on expensive paper, but something about it troubles me. Perhaps it is the timing, coming so soon after Madame Rousseau's mention of the gallery. Or perhaps it is the formal language, which seems to promise more than a simple social gathering. In my experience, when wealthy people invite police officers to dinner parties, they usually want something more than pleasant conversation. I set the invitation aside and prepare for bed, but my mind continues to work on the puzzle it presents. Villa Marguerite, stolen paintings, an art collector with problems that require police attention. The pattern is familiar, reminiscent of Philippe Beaumont's secret business. Tomorrow, I will begin investigating this new lead. Tonight I am content to have solved my first major case on the Riviera. The murder of Philippe Beaumont has taught me valuable lessons about the nature of crime in this elegant corner of the world. But as I drift off to sleep, I cannot shake the feeling that this case is not truly closed. Madame Chen's final message echoes in my mind. The game is not over. She spoke of new players, new rules, new challenges. In the art world of the French Riviera, with its combination of enormous wealth, questionable provenance, and international connections, there are certainly opportunities for new games to begin. And if my suspicions about Villa Marguerite are correct, I may soon find myself playing one of them. The postcard from Monte Carlo sits in my evidence file, waiting to travel through time, to remind an older version of myself that some games span decades. But that is a mystery for the future. For now, I am satisfied to have brought justice to Philippe Beaumont and removed a dangerous criminal from Monaco's streets. The Queen of Hearts has been played, and the hand is over. But in the world of crime, there is always another deal, another game, another chance for justice to prevail over those who would exploit the innocent. I close my eyes and let sleep take me, knowing that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new mysteries, and new opportunities to serve the cause of justice on the French Riviera. The game may not be over, but tonight at least, the good guys have won.